Welcome to the Wellness Revolution podcast, the radio show all about wellness in your mind, body, spirit, personal growth, sex, and relationships. Stay tuned for weekly interviews featuring guests that have achieved physical, mental, and spiritual health in their lives. If you'd like to have access to our entire back catalog, visit drveronica.com for instant access. And here is your host, Dr. Veronica.
I'm Dr. Veronica, medical doctor, medical intuitive, bringing you interesting people and topics so that you can grasp your health. Today, we're going to talk about a stage in life that we all go through. And this is not just for the women, it's for the men too. Because we're on a station that mostly men listen to, and so men can drift into the show too. It's not just about men and sports. It's also about the women that are next to them. Why? Because especially married men know happy wife equals happy life. But one of the problems in life, especially here in America, is as we age as women, we just get out of control. We just can get out of control. Am I telling the truth, Dwayne, over there? Dwayne, I work with wonderful guys in the studio. Al, who produces and has a wonderful voice, and we chuckle a lot. And Dwayne, who, he walks in with his dry statements all the time and can get a laugh out of all of us. So, and he's just had a wonderful experience with his family and, a wedding and all that type of stuff. But he's in the age where I know he's dealing with some crabby women too. He's got to be, because what happens is we go through life and we start cycling. You know, us women, we start cycling in the teen years usually. And then our moods go up and down and up and down. And then we approach that stage of life where childbearing ends and I can't say it on the radio, H breaks loose. Everything just breaks loose, but it doesn't have to be that way because there are so many strategies that it just doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to be crazy during your cycling years. It's not just a given. And you don't have to be ultra super crazy, spinning head devilish when you get towards the menopause years. You don't have to be like that. There are other answers. And I ain't talking the estrogen patch. And I'm not talking oral contraceptives for younger women. There are other ways to balance your body. Now, it starts with eating and sleeping, eating strategies, sleeping strategies. And there are some wonderful herbs and practices from around the world where women around the world have figured out how to keep their heads from spinning without pharmaceuticals. Imagine that. No pharmaceuticals, and you can feel better, faster, and stronger, and look fabulous, feel good when you're midlife and beyond. Well, you guys know I have a lot of really good friends. This is one of my really good doctor friends. We've known each other for a while. She actually does a lot of similar practices that I do. She does telesummits. Sexy Younger You was one of her telesummits. Sexy Younger You. Now, you'd want to hear Sexy Younger You. And also now has a wonderful menopause program. And so I said, okay, you have this wonderful menopause program. I'm bringing it out to people who are on my mailing list. And so some of you that listen might have gotten some emails about this. But there are some people out there who you don't have computers, you don't have emails, and you're old school. And so here we are on AM radio listening to talk. This is old school. And I want to make sure that my old school people are able to hear Dr. Anna Cabeca. So Dr. Anna Cabeca is a board certified gynecologist and obstetrician and is also board certified in anti-aging and restorative medicine. Hence why she can tell you how to be sexy younger you, even through menopause. So she's got it going on. So Anna, let's just get right into it. Welcome to Wellness for the Real World.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you so much, Dr. Veronica, for having me here. I appreciate it. It's awesome to be on a sports radio station. I love it.
Yes, I love sports. So this is how I ended up on the sports radio station talking. You know, it's like I go from one sports season to the other. And I know there are a lot of other women like that, too. And I think that's also one of the secrets, not just going from sports station to sports station, but doing sports yourself that keeps you younger and makes going through midlife and all these trials and tribulations of hormonal changes more bearable. Is that so when people are physically active?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Movement is key.
So let's get in.
Enthusiasm, just participating in activity you love and enjoy, and, you know, the community that strikes up. That's awesome.
So now I want to talk about menopause because hormonal changes start well before your menstruation ceases to happen monthly.
Oh, yes.
When does perimenopause, that means surrounding menopause, maybe you want to give us some definitions about when we should start thinking about these hormonal changes that are happening, and then we can begin to talk about what we can do so that when it really ceases, we're not just going absolutely bonkers. So tell us about that. Let's back up in our lives to when it all begins.
Yeah, and I had to laugh earlier when you were talking, you know, to, hey, men that are listening, this is important for you too. But, you know, the hormonal changes are true for men and women. We do both go through hormonal changes as we get older just by nature, but also by, you know, our activities, design, stress, you know, what are we surrounding ourselves with? What's our environment look like? But the perimenopause can really last. That's the time around menopause, 5 to 15 years. I mean, seriously, 1 to 2 decades. And so women in their 30s sometimes are feeling like, you know, the PMS symptoms, irregular bleeding. Well, those are, you know, also can be considered perimenopausal symptoms. You're not too young to experience that. But the key is, you know, it's telling you there's some underlying hormonal imbalance that we have to adjust. We have to get healthier food, certainly exercise, movement, mindset, environmental changes, different tweaks that we have to make, maybe some herbs and nutrients to really optimize our body's function at the first sign of the symptoms. But again, the perimenopause, 5 to 15 years, menopause is designated as the date 1 year after your last period. But many women out there listening may say, yeah, I went 2 years and then I had another period. What was that about, right? That all can be just, you know, I think the term, we get caught up in terminology, but that can all be in the same bucket of the perimenopause. And then post-menopause, women may have gone through menopause 5, 10, even 15 years earlier and still struggle with night sweats and hot flashes, vaginal dryness, incontinence, mood swings, anxiety, depression. And really, for all of us in this hormonal change, when our body's under stress like this, one thing, you know, I talk about a lot is that cortisol oxytocin association and the disconnect. So burnout, disconnect, struggling relationships, all of that, if we look at it, can be related to this underlying hormonal imbalance because we know physiology affects our behavior.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sitting here chuckling because I just, you know, there's sometimes women that I meet and I'm just like, yeah, I know why your husband wants a girlfriend because they're miserable. I feel bad for them, but they're just, it doesn't have to be that way. It's not just supposed to, just because you're getting older, it doesn't mean it has to be that way. And so you gotta think about doing something. Women, if you're feeling miserable, you're making everybody around you miserable. So if you feel miserable and say, I'm stressed, I'm miserable, I'm angry, I'm tired, everybody around you feels that way and they just deal with you because they feel like they have no choice, but you do something about it. So Anna, what can we do? What can we do about this? What do we do when we're getting this way? I get the complaints of the low libido and the vaginal dryness where people come in and say, can you do something about this for me? Yes. Oh my God. I'm happy you asked. Yes, we can. What do you tell us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think several points. One point you said, you know, and jokingly, but the woman who is, you know, or the sense of, you know, strife within a marriage, right? Men and women disconnecting. I remember a story hearing Alison Armstrong speak about a woman who was complaining that her husband traded her in for a younger model, one with less wrinkles. And she said, not less wrinkles, less resentment. And that's key. We have to understand as women that our guys just want to make us happy. And if they have, failed over and over again and we haven't, been made happy, shared how to make ourselves happy, and that really is internal, then, I would say resentment is a symptom of lack of self-care. It is a symptom of lack of self-care. So if you're resenting your husband, your mate, your partner, your children, your friends, your church group, whatever it may be, it's a sign of lack of self-care, because seriously, I think menopause is liberating. And it's been, certainly a journey for me, a roller coaster ride in so many ways, Veronica, but, it can totally be liberating. And in fact, I believe we're designed at this stage in our life to have a heightened state of energized enlightenment and spiritual connection with that inner peace, with that inner joy, to be the ocean, not the waves, right? If you get that visual, or the eye of the storm, right? To have that peace no matter what's going on around us. Share the joy, be happy ourselves, and build that happiness around us. So with the menopause, and I'm enrolling into my program, Magic Menopause, because I am so passionate about this. My mom died at 67 undergoing heart surgery. She didn't need heart surgery. She needed the root causes addressed, inflammation, hormone imbalance, and adrenal dysregulation, disconnect in the HPA axis, or adrenal burnout. Let's call it burnout. But that's also when I teach, and as I teach in my webinar, there are three main hormones that we have to address. We think as, I'm a gynecologist, we think as, and especially in age management, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, but really no, insulin, cortisol, and oxytocin. Those for me are really key. So I designed a program that works with nutrition and lifestyle to get our bodies into fat-burning mode, making us insulin sensitive, to get our bodies alkaline and pH balanced so we're not living in acidity and inflammation, addressing that, and also addressing the hormone cortisol, right? High states of stress, high acidity. So we want to get our circadian rhythm, and you mentioned sleep early on, way back in balance. And the third is oxytocin. And for that, it's a positive mindset. It's leading our mind, governing our mind, guarding our mind as we move forward into this new phase of life, to let go of the stereotype that we're old or not, or just to accept that we need surgery, or to accept memory loss, or to accept aches and pains. None of that's acceptable, honestly. It's time to really get into your passion and your purposes.
So, Anna, give us the exact address, and I'm going to ask some more questions. Where do we find menopause or Magic Menopause if we're interested in it?
Yeah, absolutely. MagicMenopause.com is perfect. That'll take you right now to a little quiz, which is super fun. Takes about 1 minute to complete, and it just kind of gives you a grade for where you are at in menopause, pre-menopause, post-menopause, whatever. But I grade you A to F. And the questions all address to these underlying symptom imbalances. So just taking the quiz is enlightening. You're like, I didn't realize that had to do with my hormones. And yeah. So magicmenopause.com, make it easy and fun. And that'll then send you to an invitation to my webinar.
Now, Min, I am thinking about you. You see, I did this show just for you. Yeah. I'm surrounded by men all the time. I got do I have 4 sons? I have so many men around me. I feel like I got 4 sons. I got 3 sons, 2 male dogs, a husband. I mean, I'm just surrounded by men, and they just, when women get a little emotional and off, they just withdraw, and they were like, I don't want any problems here. Men, though, I want you to continue to listen, because the same principles that women use to strategize and balance themselves for menopause are also wellness and anti-aging strategies. So if your wife ain't listening, and she don't listen and get herself together, because this is what I'm here for, so she can get herself together, then you listen, you implement these strategies, and then go get yourself a hot young thing. Tell her you want her ahead of time, but then, don't stay around misery. So women, you're like laughing at me, but nobody deserves to be miserable. Women, you're here, you're listening, do what you gotta do to get yourself together so that everybody's life is happy. I told you, happy wife, happy life. And so if you're not going to be a happy wife, and it ain't his fault, then he should be allowed to go off and get a happy wife. So therefore, he's got to get himself together. But men, I want you to understand, same principles that help women balance themselves and feel young and youthful. Men, you use the same exact strategies. Am I talking the truth, Dr. Cabeca?
Oh, you are so talking the truth. And this is where it's so key because, I've worked with men and, I've trained physicians and working with men's health as well and sexual health for both men and women, right? You can't just treat one half of the puzzle.
Yes.
And it's so significant. But as we address those three key hormones, those three key areas, it's the same for men and women. Now, men have an easier ability to, drop weight, get results faster for the most part than women, and have a little bit of leeway there. But men, you guys are leaders of the household. You come home, create a plan. It's for the benefit of you, your wife, your kids, and their kids, etc. That can change the trajectory of your life. And nothing's better than maintaining, reviving, reigniting, and reuniting in your relationship. Nothing is better than that. You've got history there. Those of you who've had, had second marriages or relationships or whatever, we know that's the truth. So what we can do is get our physiology straight, get to our center of peace and happiness. And believe me, it's the hormonal connection. So many diets and programs out there have had it all wrong or have had a piece of the puzzle, right? So whether you followed Weight Watchers or ketogenic plans or paleo plans or bulletproof diet or, the sugar busters or, whatever it is, the key things, the key combinations that we need to put together is getting into ketosis, fat burning mode, and getting our urinary pH alkaline. Our blood pH won't change. So I created test strips, Veronica, you know this, to check our urine because we can think we're doing everything right. We can think, the diet, which is one piece of the puzzle, lifestyle, sleep, getting outside, getting appropriate light exposure, et cetera, are all other pieces to get us into fat burning mode and make us alkaline. But putting it together, if we don't test, we really don't know. So urinary testing, and I put out some on my website, some urinalysis test strips that just on a daily basis, super cheap for a couple cents, you can check your urine and see what is your body doing. Are you eating enough grains? Are you getting outside enough? Are you meditating, reducing your stress enough? That gives us a clue for what we need. I know that I'm in the midst of preparing for my webinar, and I've been doing live questions and answers, which you're super good at it. I get super nervous. And, I went into super acidity. And so I'm like, okay, I have to alkalinize even more, even though my normal routine would typically keep me alkaline, but my stress level didn't. And I think this is just so beautiful. When we realize this, it really emphasizes why we have to create the lifestyle of health.
So I got to stop you because you're talking about being alkaline, getting out of acidity, making the point that it's not your blood, but it's your urine, and you can test for this. But I tell people you got to get alkaline. You got to get alkaline. What does that mean? What do I do? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Give a few tips to people because that's the most common question. What do you mean? What do I do? We're very reductionist, and they're listening to a little short strip here. Where do you start? Besides, let's say, okay, I'm going to go get the strips, but I don't have the strips now. What do I do today as soon as I switch off the radio?
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful question because I'm a very, very visual person. So first, I like to compare and contrast acidity and alkalinity. So if we consider acidity like Starbucks, right? Coffee and muffin, and we consider like Dunkin' Donuts acidity, right? Sugar, carbs, can of soda. New York City, we'll consider that acidity, right? The industrial center. Acidity, right? We call it the urban jungle. On the opposite side would be the Amazon. That would be high alkalinity. Greens, kale, chard, green drinks like my Mighty Maca green smoothie, and with also, alkalinizing vegetables, beet greens, bone broth, mineral broth is very alkalinizing, more minerals. So if we look at the Amazon versus New York City, so alkaline versus acidity, that kind of gives you the visual. Getting out in nature, getting sun's rays, seeing sunrises and sunsets without contacts, right? No barrier or obstacle to that solar panel that God's given us as our eyes, are ways to kind of right now, besides nutrient-wise, to get our bodies into an alkaline. I have this great little chart that I present in my webinar that is that visual of alkaline versus acidity lifestyle.
Okay.
So that's the way. Get green, think calm, peace. And, what the gift is, I think especially in menopause, there's a liberation to be able to tap into that despite what we're dealing with at the time. It's really tapping into that inner peace, which I have found just magical.
What are some of the symptoms that people might have if they're acidic versus alkaline? Is there something that you can say, you know what, people who are acidic tend to have these cluster of symptoms more than people who are alkaline? What can you say about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, first of all, at the basic level, it's a high stress, burnout, disconnect, either way too high cortisol or very, very low cortisol. So if we think about that with acidity, which also leads us into inflammation. So inflammatory symptoms, anything with an itis, diverticulitis, arthritis, and difficulty with blood sugar regulation, like in diabetes, mellitus. So it is, inflammatory would be symptoms of acidity, but that also leads us into autoimmune disease, cancer, irregular cycles, moodiness, anxiety, agitation, feeling like you're on the edge. I mean, I totally have been there, right? Just feeling like I cannot settle down, just anxious, irritable. Like, where did that come from? That's not true to my nature. But also definitely all the inflammatory symptoms, rheumatoid arthritis, joint pain, ankle pain, swelling, weight loss resistance, hair loss. All of that is related to acidity symptoms.
So let me just boil that down. I'm going to boil it down to about 3 words. Fat, sad, pain. If you are fat, sad, and in pain, you're be acidic.
Yeah, for sure.
Simple and pure. Because Dr. Cabeca said a lot of conditions on there, but the itis is an itis pain. Think about that. Weight problems and mood disorders. Think that you're acidic. Yes, you are. And so those people who are look great in the mirror and they're happy, those are people who tend to be. It's not always true. This is why you test. This is why we love to test things, but you can test yourself. You don't have to run to the lab. Get some strips, pee on a strip and see where you are. And then if you're not alkaline where you ought to be, eat more green. It's pure and simple. Eat more green. Now, I know there's people feel today and they're running around and say it's a household term now, bioidentical hormone therapy. Bioidentical hormone therapy. It's the know all and all be all. I have friends who they get their office called. Can you give me bioidentical hormone therapy? But this is wellness for the real world, and all of us don't want to use bioidentical hormone therapy. We want energy and vitality without the prescription drugs. Yeah. What are your tips on that?
Yeah, one thing that I found is, I thought I had it all together and figured out, bioidentical hormones, figured out detox diets, etc. But then hitting menopause, it was like, okay, that's not working anymore. Gain 10 pounds, gain 20 pounds. What the heck? Moody, irritable, brain fog. And I was like, okay, that's, hormones didn't change, anything changed. So that's what took me into creating this, or really making the connection between the keto-alkaline, right? Getting into ketosis, fat burning mode, and being alkaline to get this concept together, being keto-alkaline. It was amazing. So able to lose the weight, get clarity, really have that tremendous energy. But what I found out is that I needed a quarter, if not less, like quarter of the dosage of the hormone therapy twice a week versus every day, a full dose. That's the amount of reduction. Probably didn't need it at all, just kept it as a crutch. But that was hugely eye-opening for me. But it kind of makes sense when your body is like sludge, right? We're like moving through just unhealthy inflammation, leaky cell membranes, et cetera. Our hormones, we're not going to use what our body's producing naturally. But when we get that clarity, our body functions optimally. Believe it or not, we need little, if any, bioidentical hormones.
Yeah, because that's what I want to ask.
I'm a proponent, especially as we get older, to like a small dose bioidentical progesterone cream and something like that. Especially if we've had PTSD or some type of trauma in the past. It's really beneficial in the perimenopause.
Yeah, because I want to ask, as we're coming down on the end, but women in other countries don't tend to have these menopausal symptoms the same way as women here in the United States. I know in places like China, and you talk about maca in places like, Peru, and they just don't seem to have the severity of it. What's going on in these other places? Is it the stress level? Is it that they are close to the earth and grounding more? What is it here versus there?
I really think they're more keto-alkaline. Seriously, we get to that picture because if you think about it, and I've traveled around the world, one of the things that brought Veronica and I together is our love for travel, and especially Peru but in the indigenous cultures, it's like, well, how are they doing it? I think several things. It's definitely being out in nature more, right? That's going to make us more alkaline, help us with our hormone cortisol. And then the community that's so prevalent in other countries. We get isolated, and as we get hormonally imbalanced, we are even more isolated. We isolate ourselves. And that relates to your hormone oxytocin. So we become disconnected. Okay. And that's going to increase our, the imbalance of our hormones. So oxytocin is incredibly important. In my webinar, I give it my free 10 ways to increase your oxytocin e-guide. So I would encourage everyone to get that for sure. But I think that the sense of community, being outside more, having a lifestyle that's more active. I mean, as I traveled around the world, the only other place I saw a drive-through was in Australia, and we're number 1 obesity in the world. Australia's number 2. So I think that's a huge part of it, plus community. I always joke, Veronica, I say it's not the wine, the resveratrol, that's going to give us a healthy heart. It's sitting at a table with people you love, laughing and enjoying it.
Oh, yeah.
That's the oxytocin image right there. That's going to do some
It really is. It really is. I'm so looking forward to my trip this summer to France. My husband's sister is getting married, so it's going to be a big, 3-day affair. But because my brother-in-law to be wanted my husband to be at his bachelor party, we're going a week before, and then we're staying a little bit after. So 2 weeks in France, drinking wonderful red wine. But not just drinking a wonderful red wine. I love going there because it's just a joy to be around the people. Now, my French is not very good. I have to get back to my Rosetta Stone so I can say a few more words. It's not very good. But the love and joy that I can feel and understand from being around those people, I want to live there because my oxytocin is really high. So that's the secret. Go to magicmenopause.com, join the webinar. These are wonderful secrets on how to manage one of the times of life that we've just found difficult here in the United States. And Dr. Anna Cabeca, I want to thank you for being on Wellness for the Real World and keep doing your wonderful work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more on how to bring wellness into your life, visit drveronica.com. See you all next week. Take care.